My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of the 2022 movie Death on the Nile. And I was not looking forward to this movie. Back in 2017, when Murder on the Orient Express came out, I was very excited for it. I mean, I love the mystery genre, I love a good old fashioned whodunit. Everything about that movie should have made it so that I loved it. But I remember almost falling asleep in the theater, and that doesn't happen very often. I thought it was a remarkably dull and boring movie that hasn't stayed with me in any way whatsoever. But I did start to hear good things about this movie. I did hear people say that it was better than the first. So I'm just like, "Oh, you know what, maybe I'll give it a try. Maybe it is an entertaining whodunit." And I don't know what those people were thinking, but this movie is even worse than the first. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I hated each and every second I was watching this movie. I just don't understand how anybody could watch this and think it's a good movie, that it's entertaining, that it's memorable in any way. It is as dull and as boring as movies can get. I do believe that both of these movies are fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is just baffling to me. I don't get it. I don't get how people can enjoy these movies. Let's talk about the cast, beginning with Kenneth Branagh. Almost everyone's favorite part about these two movies, and I don't see why. He has a few moments where he stands out, but for the most part, he's incredibly dull and boring and lacks any bit of life or personality. If he leaned into campiness a bit more, maybe he'd be entertaining, but the way that we get this character, I don't care for him at all. Then we've also got Russell Brand in this movie, and it took me a while to recognize that was Russell Brand, but I do like him, and he's fine in this movie. We got Gal Gadot, who I've never liked as an actress. I think she's fine in the first Wonder Woman, but she's lucky to be bouncing off at someone as charismatic as Chris Pine in that movie. And ever since then, she's failed to impress me, and that's the case here. I do not think she's good in this movie at all. Then we've got Armie Hammer, who really chews up the scenery. Just kidding, but I do like him in some of his movies, but I didn't find him to be good here. Leetta White wasn't very good. Annette Bening, Tom Bateman, and Sophie Okonedo just all did nothing for me. Emma Mckee was probably the best performance in this movie. I feel like she was in a better movie than what this movie was, because I felt like her performance was really over the top and campy, and I wish the movie met her at that level. She's not good in this movie for what it is, but she's the one performance that did stand out for me. And we've also got Miss Spink and Forcible in this movie, and they're fine, I guess. Just very few good performances, if any. The cast doesn't really bring this movie to life as much as they should. And I also found this movie to be terribly directed. Kenneth Branagh is one of those directors that I just can't figure out. I actually really enjoy his 2015 movie, Cinderella. I thought that was the best take on that story. I thought he brought a lot of style to it. I think he adds some magic to that story. And I think he did a really good job with that movie. I also really enjoyed Belfast last year. I thought it was a simple, charming, delightful movie that I quite enjoyed. And then he also did movies like Artemis Fowl, which was just a terrible, terrible movie. Then he did Murder on the Orient Express, which is terrible. So at least the movies I've seen from him, he's very hit or miss. I know he's mostly known for his Shakespeare work, but I haven't seen it. And I do think this movie is terribly directed. Visually, it looks ugly. Like, there are so many green screens in this movie, and you can just tell, just during these shots, you're just like, wow, this looks really fake and really ugly. Like, when they have this budget, there's really no excuse for that. I thought the lighting was really bad, and the pacing and structure of this movie is atrocious. Some of the worst pacing and structure I've seen in a movie in quite some time, and that's saying a lot. The actual death on the Nile that this movie is named after doesn't happen until the 1 hour, 4 minute, and 52-second mark. That's how long it takes for the actual death on the Nile. Over the halfway point. Like, I don't understand how the script got okayed like that. Everybody knows you put the inciting incident in the first act. It's just common sense. So if someone asks me, what's this movie about? I can't even say it's about a death on the Nile, because that doesn't happen until the second half of this movie. So I'm just like, I don't know, it's about a bunch of people on this boat, and eventually a death happens. You've changed the way we view the movie now. And getting to that point is just unbearably slow. Like it just drags to a relentless degree. I was just like, oh my god, when is something going to happen? And I paused it, and it was the half-hour mark. It is just as slow and as boring as movies get. And even after the death happens, it's not like the movie picked up a whole bunch. No, by that point, I already checked out of the story, and there wasn't something there to make up for it. It wasn't just like suddenly the movie comes alive. It just had nothing. Just no life, no energy, no personality, not all these twists and turns, just none of that. It was just relentlessly boring. And the mystery in this movie is one of the most predictable and obvious mysteries I've ever seen. Like within the first 20 minutes, I figured out who did it and why, and it was just so obvious. Like, it's like the movie screaming in your face, this is who it's going to be. Like, I don't understand how anybody could watch this movie and not predict it. And I don't say that lightly. I typically don't get the mysteries, but the motive, just who it was just so painfully obvious to me. I also didn't find any of these characters to be interesting at all. You've got this couple that's together with a jealous ex-girlfriend. Thank you for that story at all. You've got this guy who likes this girl and the mom's unsure of that girl, and I thought that was really boring. Just none of these characters stood out in any way. I all found them to be incredibly bland and lifeless. And I haven't even mentioned the opening scene yet, because this movie literally begins with the origin story behind the main character's mustache. I'm not making this up. Like, what a ridiculously stupid thing we did not need. Like, you could easily cut that out of the movie and nothing would change. Nothing. Like, that is such a ridiculous idea that if this movie was campy and it was aware of how stupid that was and leaned into it, okay, fine, no issues there. But it just takes itself so seriously. Look, I hated this movie. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I did not enjoy a single second of this movie. The cast and the performances range from fine to awful. The story itself is so poorly put together, it's so blatantly obvious and just so terribly paced and structured. Visually, this movie looks ugly, and it's just a super long movie and it feels like it. It just drags throughout the entire runtime. It is so remarkably slow and dull and forgettable in every sense. This movie was one of the most boring movies I've ever watched. I absolutely hated watching this movie. So I'm going to go ahead and give Death on the Nile a 0.5 out of 10. Okay, what did you think about Death on the Nile? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.